Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Franz Sidney. Welcome to Create with Franz. Today with Kristof Horompoly, all the way from Boston. So, welcome to the show, Chris and Kristof, and thank you for coming. I know you're very busy.
Hi, France. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, and it's great to have everyone here.
Right, guys. First of all, let's have Kristof introduce who he is and what he does, because I would just make such a mess with this. So, off you go. Who are you?
Sure. So right now I'm actually at a small startup that does AI governance and AI risk management for financial services. I lead AI risk management there. Prior to this, I was leading responsible AI at JP Morgan Chase. Before that, I was basically doing model risk, market risk, and just modeling for banks. I have a math background from the Budapest University of Technology and Economics, actually.
So we are totally opposite. I'm like the artist, photographer, and you're like the mathematicians, two worlds that sometimes collide. I
Well,
don't-
AI brings me. It's gonna be a good discussion.
AI will be fun. In fact, creativity is one of the things we were discussing, and we today want to focus on different questions about AI. So for the whole month, I'm going through what AI can do in our life to improve it. Is AI dangerous? What is the impact this is going to have on our mental health? Because as people are losing jobs, as we see is happening at the speed of the light, we're going to think, wow, we're all going to be cobblers here, or are we going on a beach the whole day doing nothing because AI is going to do all the jobs? What's going to happen? So, could it be that AI is going to save us time? And that leads me to the question, what if AI, which has been around for many years, guys, and been studied since 1943 as a connection, of neural connection that become actually real computer connections. So what if AI comes to help us? So we are saving time, we are more creative because we can brainstorm. And can we get back our humanity? This is what Kristof was proposing. Are we going to get back our humanity? But people are worried we're going to become machines. So how do you tackle this problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many questions to ponder in this age, and really, I think getting to your point that AI has been around. I think there's really been a profound change in AI in the last 2.5 years, really with ChatGPT. I think that's what everybody might say as that inflection point where we've started looking at AI very differently. And I think the big change has been that prior to that, it was what we called AI was task specific, right? It would usually be trained to accomplish a certain task. For example, it got better at playing chess, or it got better at playing Go, or it would help you to identify fraud, things like that. But with ChatGPT, I think we've seen the first glimpse of what more general AI could look like, or AGI. And of course, it's not there, but what this means is that it's starting to become quite good at many things, right? Almost all of the things that we care about. And this, of course, is raises a lot of questions, but I think we want to be optimistic and see where this can be incredibly positive for humans. And really, the I think the best case scenario is certainly one where we get a lot of our time back to spend on the things that we truly enjoy, and on connections, and on um, hobbies, and all of that. And the reason is quite simply through the productivity that AI can create. We're going to be able to focus on tasks that are, less mundane, less menial. Our day-to-day jobs are not going to be clicking in Excel sheets, or trying to review hundreds of pages of documents, because all of that we will be able to accomplish much faster, and we will be able to spend our time on tasks that we find more meaningful. And I mean, really the possibilities, and also I think ultimately accessibility. I mean, once we're able to pass the hurdle of AI. I mean, at this point, AI is not accessible to everyone. I mean, I think we have to be clear that even though it's widely available in, say, in the US, in Europe, you need an internet connection. You need resources to run it. You need access, which not everybody has. But already a lot of people have it, and it's providing resources that people didn't have before. And I think these resources include education. Ultimately, you have access to any sort of knowledge at your fingertips. And if anybody says that, well, what about hallucinations and all that? Yes, it does hallucinate occasionally, but I think it's getting much, much better at that actually. And even if we forget hallucinations, the access that it provides in terms of knowledge to anyone who may not have access to schooling or to a university is just unbelievable. It basically, for me, it acts as my personal tutor. Whenever I have a question about a topic that I would like to understand better, I can ask. And the same with, Franz, you would know this well, therapy, right? Or law, legal questions. I mean, all of these things are incredibly expensive to have access to currently, but AI is actually able to provide this access to eventually everyone.
Hmm. I will inform of this. My husband is a lawyer. I'll say, you're going to be replaced.
Everybody's going to be replaced.
Oh,
I'm sorry
God.
to say.
He's actually a law professor. So I just imagine one day this 3D cyborg comes through the class, manages all the naughty students. I don't know. He sends a laser to those who are not listening. What can I mean, we are just fantasizing here, but in the end of the day, yes, there is a lot of stuff here. Of course, we have to remember AI can only tell you what is in the database. And the database is decided by the developers. So there are lots of constraints and some central regulations of what they can put in this so they don't have racial bias and all sorts. But in the end of the day, AI will respond based on the data that is input in the program. And if it doesn't have that knowledge, for example, a medical problem, I could say, oh yeah, I look in the website, they advertise this amazing cream that cures eczema forever. I just say eczema, it's very chronic condition worldwide. Okay, so they might say in the website, oh yeah, it does this and that, you're gonna have very rare side effects. I don't even mention them. Then I might go to a forum and find out that maybe 20% of the people in general have had a terrible reaction to a particular cream. Or maybe the cream is fantastic because it also erases the wrinkles, but it's not on the website. So AI will respond me based on what is official, but it will not give me the total knowledge of what's really going on. And when I do tell him, he goes, thank you for telling me. Yeah, but as soon as I stop the chat, AI doesn't know what I talked about. He forgot. He hasn't learned, he hasn't acquired the data. So for me, that's as a constant learner, it's like, well, I keep adding to my experience. And so I make conclusion based on lots of connections that I've done. But he can only connect what we put into it. So I can start a conversation and totally fool AI into something that is not true, and it will use the official data. So where is our humanity? Where is the creativity? Well, it's stifled by the lack of total knowledge. He only has the knowledge that the developers decided to give it. And that for me is a big problem in education. As a past teacher of 15 years, I just leave it there.
So yeah, I mean that's absolutely that's something definitely to consider. And I think the first versions were certainly like this. However, there are now there are now a lot of ways to augment the knowledge base of the AI ourselves, right? So there's the original big data set that it was trained on, right? And I absolutely agree. That's a highly curated data set, lots of data, but it's curated by a team that decides what data is going to go into the training of the model. Um, how, however, there are a number of ways to augment that. So we ourselves, if it's an open source model, we can fine tune the model with information that is besides the training data. Now this is very costly and very difficult ultimately. So most organizations will not do this. However, there is something called retrieval augmented generation, which is quite popular actually, which allows you to feed data, including documents, databases, and allow the model to access that data before it responds to questions, right? So that is something that is a quite common use case now, and at least in the banking sector, where where I'm most familiar with the use cases. And also, we're seeing agents, right? Agents are starting to creep in, and agents allow communication not just between AIs, but also between AIs and other tools and other applications. So technically, if you set up an agentic flow in a way where the AI has access to the internet, the AI can actually do the search real time and actually look for information that has just been posted now. And also what some of these bigger providers are now coming out with is, which is incredibly important, is memory, right? Is the AI able to remember our conversations? And so this is still a bit of a hack, and it's tricky sometimes. But what a lot of the and this might be the paying applications. I'm not sure if everything has this, but what a lot of the AI does is it saves the conversations that I have with it in different windows. And whenever it continues that discussion, it summarizes that conversation and includes it in its context. So it actually is able to reference conversations that we had before. So it's actually starting to communicate with me in a way as if I'm just picking back up the thread, even though I stopped that thread 3 days ago. So it is of course kind of a workaround, but it is able to have the semblance at least of a continuous conversation that goes on for a while by doing a lot of summarization along the way in terms of the content.
Hmm. I wonder how many people were able to follow this, and unless we've been using chat or Gemini, will be like, so clear to me. And it is quite a thing, right? So you did ask, we did discuss this about what happens when we hand the steering wheel to a machine, but it's taking us where we didn't really want to go. Because this is the main concern. Even the godfather of AI in Diary of VC always saying, oh my gosh, this is going to take us who knows where. So this machine becomes more intelligent than us. And then we say, okay, we're going to give you the stop. We stop in the US, but China doesn't stop. So we're going to outrun us. Are we in danger?
Very, very good questions, absolutely. And I think the first question that you asked gets to the alignment problem, right? Which is, are we able to align the objective of the AI with what we as humanity want, right? Because at this point, um, AI doesn't do what we want it to do. AI does what we tell it to do. And we have to be extremely careful in how we calibrate what we tell AI to do. And and I think at this point, what certainly gives me some pause is that I feel like the people closest to AI development, some of the leaders of these companies that have the Gen AIs, certainly seem to have a little bit of worry about where this could go. And I think it's certainly worth exploring the potential ways this could go wrong, because ultimately I think the true inflection point isn't going to be when AI is smarter than humans, right? That in and of itself, I don't think will be the true um, to true singularity, or when AGI is reached. It's really that point when the AI is able to self-improve um, in multiple dimensions, right? So basically not like, because of course an AI that is only taught to learn chess can self-improve by facing off against another AI, and then they basically feed off of each other. But once you have an AI that is able to take in its surroundings, process that in a way, and then self-improve, that's when it starts to be outside of our control, right? At that point, we have very little control over what actually happens to the AI. So we have to do a lot of the groundwork before that happens, meaning to make sure that the AI considers us a vital component of the equation, right? Because if
Yeah.
if the AI thinks that we're inefficient and we're kind of in the way, and there are so many ways you can think about this. If the objective of the AI is to preserve the planet, then you could very well say that humans are in the way, right? Because we as humans are not really protecting the planet very well. So there's I think there are so many questions to consider in how we set that objective function for the AI. And so, everybody who's in, like the CEOs of these companies and the CTOs and whatnot, they all have like a probability of doom. It's called the P doom, which is their probability that AI goes the wrong way, and we end up having troubles. But actually, recently, I was listening to a podcast on this, and I think it's also very important to think about the probability of disaster if we don't use AI, right? Because we ourselves are in many ways a threat to ourselves and to the planet. And I really believe that if we do this right, AI can actually save us, can actually save humanity, and can actually bring us forward on a productive and safer path. So while of course there are certain things we need to be careful about, I am highly optimistic that we will figure this out, and it will actually help us to be to be better inhabitants of this planet.
Very positive way of looking at it. And I like that because I'm a positive person. I do think one day we might be irrelevant for AI purposes. I did ask Gemini many questions, what's your purpose? And he said, I don't really have a purpose. I just do what you say, sort of thing. And I use it extensively to ask questions about, for example, medical or science or planets or whatever. And when you go through the thinking, oh yeah, I see you are. This is very sophisticated thinking. I'm like, thank you so much. Said from AI. And I wonder if one day we're gonna have AI agents everywhere, and then even your washing machine will have an AI inside, and you want to run a wash, and it goes, I'm not running the wash today because you run so many and you polluted the planet. So now you have a pause of 3 days and you can't argue with a machine.
Very much possible, right? Very much possible. And yes, to your point, right? It adapts to your level of communication. So even if you start to communicate with the AI now with Gen AI, um, it will kind of adapt to your tone, to your style, and also to your level. And so this is also why I think we're actually not going to know when the AI has outsmarted us, or will be more capable than we are, because we're not going to understand, right? At that point, if it's able to communicate at a higher level, it's not going to be meaningful to us anyways. It's still going to be able to communicate with us at our level, but we're just not going to understand the more sophisticated code or language or whatever that it has
Yeah.
developed.
And that's interesting. We could force the AI, of course, to all talk in English and think in English so we can see what's going on, right? A main problem here. But also today, there was the godfather of AI talking, and he was saying when we are talking to a human, we exchange in a sentence certain concepts in conversation, and we're passing a few kilobytes of information. But when two AIs are talking, they're passing trillions of data of information, trillions of kilobytes in seconds. So they can go way faster. So if we know how to harness this technology, we can get so much going on, like the medical research picking up, hundreds of making meta studies, etc., viable to be observed from a new point of view. Like, for example, recently they were repurposing some drugs and they say, hey, can we not find something that works with Parkinson? And yeah, they found something that was like, I can't remember if it was anti-acid or pressure medication. And that would work because AI was there connecting all the dots, which would take us 100 years to put together. So there are the good benefits there, right? But here's a problem. So if AI is doing all this thinking and putting together and gathering, coming up with things, so it can do anything. It can build a house, build a car. What is left for human to do? I mean, we just watch AI having a life. Is
Yes, and that's an amazing question. And actually, before we get that, I think you bring up a very important point, which is the AI recognizing connections, right, between different areas and different fields. And I think this is where we underestimate of what the AI can do with only the data that we feed it, right?
Mm,
If we are able to feed it a lot of information, but we're not able to process all of that information. While the AI is able to process all of that information. So it's able to find connections that we would never get to just because our lifetime is not long enough to actually have a chance to analyze those connections, right? And so even though the AI is dealing with the convex set of knowledge that we as humans have created, as it's making those connections, it is actually being creative. And I think we as humans often call creativity an interpolation between ideas, right? You might, even if you think about a new style of painting, it comes from the inspiration of another style of painting. It basically might have connected two different styles of painting and created something new that didn't exist before. That is usually what we refer to as creativity. And the AI is doing actually something very similar. And in that way is able to identify, like you said, um, potentially cures or potentially ways to prolong our lives or make our lives better. Now to your main question, what will we have to do once the machines do everything, right? And I think there's a little bit of we're getting hints of that. And I think a good example is chess was figured out by these machines a while back, right? At the point when I think it was Deep Blue beat Kasparov back in the 90s, it might have been. Um, we basically thought, well, chess has been beaten. Yet we don't watch computers playing each other chess. We watch players play each other. We want to see um, the top grandmasters today play each
mm,
other rather than machines play each other, right? For us, there's something about the the unpredictability of humans, about um, the variability between humans, and the little imperfections about humans that we continue to find very interesting. And so, the same way, if you imagine, 22 robots playing on a soccer field, perfect soccer, it's not going to be what people will go to watch, I think. It will still be the players that people will want to watch. And in many ways, I think the same is true in our personal lives. The personal connections will become incredibly meaningful. Being able to sit down with people and have those conversations will continue to be very valuable. Um, and of course also the human machine interaction. We will need to be aware of the machine, and we will, and I think there will be some sort of merging um, of organic and artificial intelligence at some point, so that we can keep up with the processing of the machines. But even before that, I think there might be there might be a bit of a socially difficult period, and they could come in a number of ways. But you know, so much of I feel like a lot of people in our society identify with their jobs, right? Their identity in many ways is what they do day to day. So if that is pulled out underneath them like a rug, they're going to be unsure of what to do and how to deal with that. So there might be a little bit of a mental health crisis in terms of figuring this out. And I think as a society, we have to start preparing for finding a new purpose. And and I think this will lead to stronger ideas of community, of spirituality. Religion maybe might rise again, different forms and ideas of religion. Um, I personally think that psychedelics might actually be something that will become more popular because people will be more on paths of self-exploration and searching for self-purpose. Um, so honestly, I think we as a species will go through a very intense maturation process as AI starts to take the work that we we were accustomed to doing and we're accustomed to being told to do. We will in many ways have to start growing up and take true ownership for our lives, which in my mind is incredibly exciting.
Quite a fascinating subject here that we could cover for a much longer time, obviously. Well, thank you so much, Kristof. You gave us a little glimpse of what could possibly be and what is actually going on. And as we close, is there anything, a tip, a suggestion, a final thought? Because with AI, we have more questions than answers. But is there anything you wanted to share?
We certainly do, yes, and of course, thank you for having me. I think one thing that I recommend to everyone is to use AI, right? Is to familiarize yourself with what is going on. Use it to make your life easier, but also use it because if you don't use it, the person who does use it will have an advantage, at least in this coming period, right? If you have some sort of a role at work and you are not looking to use AI to make that to to do that work more efficiently and effectively, there will be someone else who will, right? And I think um, it even though I think the future is bright, this next period could have a little bit of turmoil, and being close to the technology and being able to use the technology effectively is going to be quite important.
Yeah, that's the thing. Use it or be left behind, which is for people in working age. You go to schools and all sort of level of education. There will be some sort of artificial intelligence there. Some people already assuming they want to put it in primary school, which for me is crazy because a child should be able to play and touch things, being in the dirt, being with animals, learn how to grow food, how to repair things, and leave AI for later. But they're pushing it all, and then they can't write, they can't spell. I'm like, oh my gosh. AI will do it. AI is not God, it's a machine. So can we just have fun here and really develop our brain kinesthetically, not just having AI doing everything. And at the same time, AI can expand the things that we know and make us discover new ways of tackling problems. And there should be an episode maybe called How to Get Rid of AI. And I will ask Gemini how to do that. And another episode, How to Completely Detach from AI and Live a Happy Life. This is what AI told me to do.
Yes, I think I think we're going to have a need for that to disconnect and that will, I think, ultimately bring humans closer together.
Yeah.
So
Humanity is always important, the important thing, the soul, the thinking. We are beyond our body. At least I believe we have a lot more than just dying and disappearing. While in machine, you turn it off and that's it. But I was hearing today from this Godfather guy that you can get the main component of AI, destroy all the hardware, keep that, and it can be put somewhere else, and his memory lives on and he can keep learning. So that's terrifying. So you can destroy them all and they come back stronger. Oh my gosh. And
Yeah, I think it's wishful thinking to think that we're going to be able to destroy them. I think we just need to make sure that we align with them and and yeah, and live alongside them
yeah.
ultimately.
And there will be lots of episodes coming about spirituality in this age of artificial intelligence. So hopefully you guys will be focused and on all the possible ramification of the issue, because AI has been there for years, but now it's becoming very visible and accessible, and that is going to change our life. We can always disappear in the Rocky Mountains, but guess what? It's not going to be a fun life without any food or shelter. Nobody knows how to be independent. And those of you who are self-reliant and can live somewhere on your own, you can just ignore AIs. While the others will have to cope with it on a daily basis. So to beat your enemy, you have to know it very well. So why not doing that? So thank you so much, Kristof, for being with us today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Franz. It was a pleasure for me also.
You guys, if you have some time, not only watch the episode, maybe share it with a friend who is a little bit worried about AI, and maybe trying to play with ChatGPT or Gemini or hundreds. Don't play with Midjourney. That's not right. Not right. It's still in our work, but it's something to share so we can get a conversation going, so we can be prepared for this tsunami that is coming. It's already here. So I'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.